Welcome to the podcast with your favorite cash flow guys, Mike and Blaine, giving you the best advice while having a beer. When you're running a business, there are problems every day. Let Mike and Blaine help you out and guide your way. Cheers to the good times with Mike and Blaine for business, beer, and BS.
Hey, it's episode 146 of Mike and Blaine. I'm Mike Milan, also known as Cash Flow Mike. That is my friend, my partner, my confidant. He is the CEO and founder of Dry Run, the best cash flow forecasting software on the planet. Blaine, what's up, man?
I just realized when people are watching us live, they have to sit there and watch us sing along with our jingle. But you know, if you watch it on YouTube after the fact, we got like a whole little video at the start, and it's way cooler. So go make sure you check some of our other episodes out on YouTube. Make sure you follow, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, so you don't miss an episode.
What else would we do while the jingle's playing except for sing along? I don't get it.
No, next week we'll just stare.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we don't want to make a bad podcast worse.
This will make it worse. I was just about to say next week we could do an interpretive dance.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I'm telling you what, a guy talked to me yesterday about yoga. Oh, dude, I've tried yoga and it is fantastic. I'm just not flexible. So it's not pretty. I mean, everybody goes, oh, it's such a beautiful art form. Yeah, you haven't seen me do yoga.
It's hard. I've tried it before too. It's a tough workout, and I can't stretch. I can't even touch my toes unless I bend everything in my body here. But
have you ever picked up an old rubber band? You know, the ones that are kind of like cracked and all that. And if you pull it too hard, it'll snap. Yeah, that's every tendon in my body. I'm afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, it's a good thing we're marinating ourselves in beer to see if it'll loosen things up a bit.
Hey, speaking of beer, we got a ton of beer sponsors, right? This thing, man, it's crazy how it just grows. It evolves. People want to get involved. Why? It's because it's the best $5 you've ever spent. You get this part. Think about it. It's at the very first part of the episode before people go, I'm not going to listen to this shit anymore. You get to be talked about, right?
Exactly.
So here it is. I mean, I'm going to mention Jackie York, right? She just came on last week. She's in Honolulu. She can clean. I didn't realize this. I was on a call with her today. She goes, hey, give me your messiest books. I will clean them up. You know who wants to do that work? She does. Most accountants, most CPAs do not want to touch it. Jackie's saying, throw it on mine. And I'm going to talk about the messiest books I've seen in a long time today as part of this episode, which is about being dumb. And we don't want you to be dumb. Dumb doesn't mean unintelligent. It means I don't understand my business. So we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah. And also we got a few more beer sponsors. Again, we just love you guys. Thank you so much. Buying us a beer every episode. Baltimore Mike, we got to thank Baltimore Mike. The other Mike Milan mailed booze to you, delivered it, hand delivered to me when I was up in Scottsdale there. So, yeah, thanks again, Mike. And, two more. I'm going to hop right in. Larry Weinstein in Houston, best CPA in Houston. If you're looking for a CPA, go talk with Larry Larry Weinstein out of Houston area. He'll help you out. Yeah.
All right. So, and then also we got Rachel Barnett. I mean, QuickBooks is the lifeblood of every business. You got to have your books up to date. I mean, if you've ever heard the statement, garbage in, garbage out, stop putting garbage in. Get Rachel Barnett involved. She helps you understand it so you don't put garbage in, or can help you put in the right things and make it exactly right every single time. Rachel Barnett of Gentle Frog.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we got a last one. And I'm going to bring up the last one because he has a new logo, new thing. Neighbor Pat gave me another growler of beer. It's so much better, right? It's better. He's getting better every single week. Brewed in San Antonio. I know I've seen it brewed right down the street. This guy, it says Blue Moon. It is a Blue Moon knockoff. And I'm going to tell you what, I can't wait to try it. I haven't tried it. That Irish Red, I sent him a message last week about the Irish Red. It was the best one he sent down here. So I think he's either dialing it in or he's got something going on really special down the street. So
yeah,
thanks,
it's gonna be Blue Moon is knocking off neighbor Pat with how good that beer will be. So that's great to see. So in honor of our topic today, so you're talking about being a don't understand my business, and you're talking about everyone thinks they understand their business, but oftentimes they don't understand their business. So I just grabbed this beer out of my fridge called Dual Sided. It's a triple IPA from Anchorage Brewing Company. But look at the artwork. If you guys are on QB or on YouTube, the artwork on this can is absolutely amazing. This dual sided, absolutely stunning. Anchorage always has really cool cans, but you know what I'm going to say? And because you know how many breweries we have talked about on this show. Anchorage is one of the best. Absolutely one of the best. I have never had a bad beer from Anchorage, but I have had a bunch of absolutely outstanding beer. And I got to give you guys kudos at Anchorage there. If you guys love IPAs, they have some barrel-aged stouts that are unbelievable too. Anchorage Brewing Company is so good that I kind of want to get on a plane and fly up to Anchorage and go check out their brew pub and sit there for a few nights because their beer is unbelievable. And I bet you they have a bunch of stuff you can't get unless you're there. Outstanding brewery. And I don't say that often. If you haven't tried Anchorage, go try some of their beer. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. All right. So you know how I always give Pat hell, right? It's like, it's fine. First of all, this thing smells wonderful. It's just, he said this was the one that flew off the shelf. He had a party. He had like cars lined up down the street, had a party last weekend. This one flew off the shelf. He barely was able to put enough back for me. But he calls it Blue Moon. That's not the color of Blue Moon.
That's not the color of Blue Moon. But no,
not the color.
Maybe that's the color Blue Moon should be.
Maybe that's the color it should be. But it's orangey. I
All right, give it a taste, and does it taste like
dude. Initially, you think Blue Moon because it's in my head. I'm like, Blue Moon, yeah. Initially, you think it, but color, I'm like, color's not Blue Moon, Pat.
Yeah, see, Pat, you should actually call that Red Moon, like Red Moon Rising or something. It's like it's way ahead of Blue Moon. It's neighbor Pat's Red Moon Rising.
Ooh, I like that. See, Pat, there you go. We're always giving small businesses. We're giving them advice. We're helping them grow. Part of it's marketing.
I will say, just before we start, I just look. This is 10%er, and it's a pint, and I'm got through a lot of it already. So we'll see how it goes by the end. You might be carrying us.
If I remember right, I had to carry you last week too.
Oh, last week I was so tired. I could have lied down under like just partway through the show, just like start to slink down and go to sleep. I was so tired last week, but I feel good today. I don't know, because that is so rare for me. I just absolutely felt like just a bag of crap, and I don't remember why. I don't busy day, bad sleep. I don't remember. I just remember. Yeah, I got a little energy today, so I'm good.
All right, so you know how we've already spent we always spend the first 10 minutes on this, but think about what you get for $5. Think about that. All you have to do is go to mikeandblaine.com, click on Buy Us a Beer, and you can be part of this first 10 minutes, right? The first 10 minutes, we're going to give it back to you. Like, subscribe, listen to it. I'm telling you, whatever you're doing with these shorts, people are watching them. We're getting subscribers. It's crazy how these shorts that you've done have really helped us explode, right? Yeah. And then now you're figuring out SEO. Dude, we took this from a who cares podcast to all of a sudden we're tweaking it just a little bit every single week, and it's going to pay off. My man, it's going to pay off this SEO stuff.
Yeah. Because we're like episode 145. I'm like, hey, you know what you should use? Keywords. So this is our brilliant SEO stuff. Use it for everything else. Never thought about it for the podcast. So anyway.
There's probably an episode of us telling other people to do that.
Yeah, exactly. While we just drink away. You should really use some keywords. And then I just found that out the other day. Like, oops. I think we missed that. So
we don't do that part. Yeah. So anyway, you can go to our website and buy us beers, $5 an episode. It's really cheap. Then you can buy our merch. I mean, people are buying these shirts. I've seen people wear the shirts. I get on calls, Zoom calls, and they go, "Hey, I got your shirt." I'm like,
Nice.
"It's fantastic." So
That's awesome.
It's kind of cool stuff. But yeah. But here's the thing. I want to start off by saying dumb, right? This whole episode's about being dumb. Now, I wrote a whole book about the subject, right? So that's kind of why we're doing it today. Is I said, don't be dumb, right? You know what's funny about this book? It's called "Don't Be a Dumb Business Owner." But I said, hey, did you get my dumb book? So it's one of those things where you kind of play with it. But dumb doesn't mean unintelligent. It means I don't understand my business, right? And here's how it came about. When I was in the middle of the biggest cash flow problem I'd ever had, I was in a hotel staffing company. I'm worried about making payroll, those type of things. I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I'm not even at my desk in my office. I'm not sitting at the kitchen table looking at this stuff, have it spread out, got more room. And I'm like going, man, what am I, dumb? I feel like I just don't understand my own business. And I don't know what it was. You ever got a lightning strike that says, hey, that's important? Remember that? Because I said dumb and don't understand my own business, and they kind of matched up.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I wanted to talk today about the things we do because we're dumb, because we think nobody else has ever been through this.
Yes. And I will say some of the hardest thing to determine is when other people have been through the same thing, right? Or similar. And man, sometimes seeing what they're doing, hearing what they're doing, talking to them, understanding it can be like 3 steps forward. Sometimes it can be 1 step back. And it's really sometimes hard to understand which is which until later. It's like the hindsight is 2020 rule. That's why my fantasy football team for years was called the Hindsighters, because it was like just a disaster. And every year after the season, I'm like, wow, I shouldn't have drafted that shit bag. Like that was a dumb move, right?
Oh, dude, speaking of mine, I was on the verge of the playoffs last year, and I went all in, man. I dumped draft picks. I spent, fake money in the league just to get some people. And I mean, I was giving up all kinds of stuff, like things I would never do because I thought I was close enough. There's only like 1 or 2 games apart between any of the top guy and me.
Yep.
And I'm like going, dude, if I can just get into the playoffs, I can win this whole thing. So I bet the farm. I lost the farm.
It's so hard. It's one game.
I lost the farm. Yeah. I lost the farm. So this year I'm going to suck at all fantasy football because I'm going to have to live with those decisions, right? The things that I did, the bets that I made, the things that I assumed. I was wrong so many times, and now I've got to live with the decision. And you know where I'm going with that.
Oh, yeah, completely. Yeah. I'll let you go there so we don't get into how shitty my teams are. So go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying that in your business, you do the same thing. You think you're like going, everything is set up perfectly for this project, for this, for this process, this new contract, whatever it is you're trying to do. Maybe the new employee that we shouldn't have hired. You always think everything is set up perfectly for this to happen, and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you go, the dumb kind of kicks in. Maybe I just didn't understand the business well enough, right? I don't understand my business. And that expands across all levels of your business, from sales to your business plan, to the hiring plan, to what you do, to what you did. Being dumb affects us all. We're all been there at some point in time.
And it's usually on repeat. It's not a one-time thing, right? Like there's always something to learn. There's always a challenge, and there's usually a blind spot somewhere, right? And like we were talking, before the show started, if you guys are watching live, we started a little late. That was because Mike and I were sitting there BSing and chatting away, and also like, oh shit, we better start the show. But it just reminds me of, okay, I'm going to go off the mark here a little bit, but running a business like this reminds me of, you ever seen the show Major League?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the wild thing picture, and he comes walking out, and dun dun is like just strutting out, and they're playing Wild Thing, and then he gets to the mound, and then he's like he throws a ball, and it's about like it whizzes past the umpire's head, hits the cage at the back, and he's like just a bit outside. That's the commentator up there, and he's like a mile away, right? And then they find out he needs glasses. But he learned something, and then he starts dialing it in. Well, it's just a friend of mine who's helping us as a CMO has been saying to us for the last few months, a thing that kind of started to wrap around my head. He would say it, and it kind of was in one ear and out at the other a tiny bit until I started to see it. And he goes, you're outside the strike zone, but you're getting closer, and you're getting closer. And every couple of weeks, he's like, you're getting closer to that strike zone. And so, like we've sort of been there where it's like, you got all the confidence in the world and you think it's going well. And I was like, oh man, I'm just throwing a bunch of balls here. And suddenly it's starting to dial in and to dial in and dial in. And we're like, now I get it, but we're not quite there. I can see we're not quite there, but boy, we're a lot closer, and you're just zeroing in on that strike zone. And as a business, that can happen in multiple places in the business. And it's constant. It's not like your startup and then you figure it out and you're all good. It's just constant. You're trying to find that strike zone, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is that you're not dumb. It's just things you don't understand yet. You're dialing it in. You're testing a message. You're testing a technique or a process. That doesn't make you dumb, right? What happened to me is, here's why I wanted to start this today, is I was talking to clients, and it happens all the time where they go, nobody has a business like mine, right? That's where it starts. Nobody has a business like mine. I'm unique in the world. Nobody does it like me. Nobody has, the processes like me. So I'm different. Well, maybe that's your unique competitive advantage, or maybe you don't understand what you have. Because I probably said that in the beginning. You got to remember, I was running what I thought was one company, but I had a hotel staffing company, which is really one company. It was one LLC. I had 3 bar restaurants, which all had their unique challenges with customers and pricing and those type of things. And then I had a property management company with rents and taxes and repairs and those type of things. But I operated as one company. So in my mind was, nobody can understand my challenge because you don't know how all these things work together. There's nobody else in the world that runs a hotel staffing company with bar restaurants that own rental property. That was my mindset. I didn't think about it as I actually had 3 different types of companies. There are a lot of people that have staffing companies. There's a lot of people with restaurants. There's a lot of people I was trying to just consolidate it and tell you that you don't know shit because you never run my business.
Yeah. And that's especially early on. I think that business owners almost all go through that. Cause I remember I had a creative agency for over a decade, and my thought was, no, this is different. This is a very different area of business. It's very different. And that's what you think, right? And of course, there are fundamental differences from other businesses. We do some stuff different, of course, than selling a hamburger, right? But the longer I was in business, the more I realized the fundamentals of business go across verticals and just across industries. There's there's more in common than not. There's how you're managing staff and managing cash flow and their growth and all these other things. But that's what business owners all think. Oh, I'm so unique. And I remember a thing that stood out to me is that there's a friend of mine he was doing creative work as well. And I remember him, this is a lot of years ago, 25 years ago, probably. We were just sort of getting started. And he said, we were talking one day, and he was talking about having struggle closing a deal. And he goes, so you know what I did? He says, while I was going to school, I had to pay my way through school. I was selling vacuums door to door. And he goes, and I was selling to these guys and doing all this, talking like a creative and all of this stuff. And he goes, I was having trouble closing them. And he goes, and I pulled out every closing, like everything I had from selling vacuums. And he goes, boy, did I close them. And it just was like, it was this realization for him. He's like, the fundamentals of sales are the fundamentals of sales. And he just, and also his business is growing because he's like, he could close anything at that point.
Yeah.
Because he had this experience that he never gave credit to because it seemed really foreign.
Hey, I'm going to tell you what, and that was big in the 90s and before, where you would invite somebody into your home and they would give you a presentation of sales of somehow, right?
Yeah.
That was the best training programs in the world on how to sell because you've got a limited amount of, it ain't like we can email you in the 90s and 80s, just email you about your stuff. You got to learn how to connect emotionally to people, right? And I always say that a successful business owner is best when he's a chameleon. And what that means is you match the style of the person because people buy people, not products.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm more willing to buy from you because I like you rather than anything else.
Yeah, it's true. And those, like, if you own a business, sales, chops, experience, it's not just experience, is refining the craft, but sometimes it's also a bit of a natural built-in that makes it easier for some people, right? And I know when I was going to university during the summers, there's one year I worked for a painting company. We would paint houses and a lot of commercial stuff and condos and stuff, but a lot of houses and that too. And moved from there to construction because I just wasn't making that much money from that. But one thing that I found was I could my boss would say, well, if you get me a place where I can go give them an estimate, like I'll pay you $20. So I just started going door to door and I found out I was actually really pretty good at that. And I'm like, oh man, I'm making way more money going door to door to get this. I can get everyone to get an estimate from me. And I was making way more money doing that than painting. And it was just like that. If looking back now, I'm like, I should have just stuck with that. Like I should have expanded that. Right. But I was like 18 years old or whatever. I'm like, it's beer money. Like, I'm making pretty good money doing this. But fast forward how many years, like 30 some years, it's still that, like you said, it's like building rapport really quickly, building relationship really quickly, having like all of these things that are now automatic to me. Right.
Yeah. But when we say D.U.M.B, don't understand my business, that guy understood that if he didn't give estimates, he wouldn't have future revenue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, it's worth it to give you $20 because if you close one out, or he can close 1 out of 10, it cost him $200 for a $10,000 paint job or wherever hell he was charging.
Yeah. I will. Okay. I'm going to add something in here because that was one side of it, right? The other side of it, I got the guy quotes. He didn't know how to quote because he didn't know his business. So this is a little bit different area, a little bit different area. The problem was, I mentioned I went to construction. The reason I went to construction was because we weren't making any money because we were paid per job. And what we started, and so like, it was kind of the idea, hey, if we go in and we're really efficient, we can make more than what would be sort of the hourly rate. Because they would basically set like you have 2 days or 2.5 days or whatever to do this job. The problem was he didn't know how to quote. And what he was doing is he was underquoting to try and get jobs. And we weren't making any money because he was just massively underquoting. And he got money in and he paid us. And we're like, yeah, but we're not making any money. We're putting in way too many hours. But his business, if he was actually running the numbers, he would have noticed that for him and his mind, I think it's like, I got quote, I got paid. I got quote, I got paid. I got quote, I got paid. Yeah, but your capacity is running at like a quarter because you're doing way too many jobs because you're underquoting everything. And once I figured that out, and this is me like shithead, like 18-year-old, 19-year-old. And I'm like, I realized I'm not making any money off of this. So I called up a buddy and he's like, yeah, we're hiring over here to doing some construction. That turned out to be, I was making more money, but it was a hell of a job. But what happened was I phoned the guy, and when I quit, he tried to lay it on thick and is like, well, I'm really disappointed. You're not allowed to quit and all this kind of stuff. And I lectured that. I'm 18 years old. I lectured that guy on business for about 20 minutes. This is how you're failing, because you don't know your business. You don't know how to quote. I'm not making any money. You're not making any money. I don't even think it's probably the best business, insight he got. I don't even think he knew he was losing money at the time. It was tragic, right?
Yeah. So I just went to a whole different place when you said that. I'm like, oh my God, I hadn't even thought about it that way. But yeah, sometimes there are people, when they're dumb, don't understand their business, that they actually hurt themselves with every piece of success or things they think are successful. And here's what I mean, right? I worked with a manufacturing company, and they started going, we have these contracts. We're supposed to be making money. How come we're not making money? And me, I'm thinking, well, it must be the way you spend. Right. It's got to be. I mean, you have a contract. I mean, what you're going to sell your manufactured part to somebody else, you know what you bid it at. Well, it's going to be in one of two places. It's going to be either in the way that you bid it, meaning your materials, right? What does that cost you versus what you charge over the top to the customer, or in the way you run your business. It's a cost problem. So I looked at it, and it wasn't an expense problem. Now I want to make the difference between cost of goods sold, which is what you buy your materials or your labor at to buy or build the product. The other part is how you run your business, your operating expense, your rent, your advertising, those type of things, office salaries. Their problem ended up being in cost of goods sold because they didn't understand what things cost. So imagine this, you put like 5 components together, like part 1 through 5. I combine part 1 through 5 into one thing and make it product A, right? So part 1 through 5 parts make one product. And then you sell that. Well, if you miss one of the prices on any of those extra parts, you might get your pricing wrong and lose money.
Yeah.
What we determined was they had 2,300 different parts that they built. On 119 of them, they were underpriced, which means they were paying more for the material than they were getting paid for, by the customer. And that's what happens when you do these massive contracts, and it'll be like 100 different parts or something like that. Sometimes you'll miss, like, oh, I didn't anticipate the price of aluminum going up 3 months from now, and there's no way to change the price. Well, what happens when you're paying more per part than you're getting paid, the more you sell, the more you lose.
Yeah.
So more sales actually is a worse problem. It digs a bigger hole. And that's what was happening with this company. They didn't understand that they had parts that were variable in price and made a fixed price contract that killed them. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're bringing in cash, but you're bleeding profit, and it's going to kill you. Like at some point, it's going to kill you, right? You know what? This reminds me a lot of back in my creative agency days. That was one of the things that I learned. Probably not too late, but a little while in. It's like, hey, we're making money, we're profitable. But then I started to look and go, how come we're not our margins are really tight? And as I started to dig through, I had too simplistic a view of our hours and our rate and everything. So let's say you have 10 jobs on the docket, they're all going at once. We've quoted them all. Now we quote by the job, but when I'm developing the quote, I'm building a budget of hours and resources that we can use. And then it's like we got to keep the staff to within our budget. And if they stay within the budget, you should be good, right? But then the third variable is, are they giving you enough billable hours every week? And so it's easy to go, quoted this job and it was 100 hours. And hey, look at my tracking. My guys put in 99 hours. Hey, I'm an hour ahead. But then you start looking at the efficiency and are they giving you enough billable hours during the week? And that third metric was where we started to go, well, there's a couple places. Were we quoting right? Were they actually tracking their hours accurately and staying under budget? And were they doing enough billable hours every week where they're not installing software, playing friggin' foosball or ping pong? So you start to get all of these things. And if you're not on top of all of them, you're bleeding money, you're bleeding profit, you're bleeding cash, like everything. And when you start to get all of those things trackable and you understand how they all interplay, now you can actually get the engine going and do well.
Yeah, I think it's no matter what fiddle hopper you're building, you've got to be able to. Come on.
I just think, good. You know
that
what?
Was good. That was good.
That was a good one, but I tell you, that was way off topic. I think you got to be sticking to your knitting.
See, that was even better. That was a good one. That was a good one.
I think we need a sticking to your knitting t-shirt. I actually, right as the show was starting, I typed that in because I think we should be working in both fiddle hopper and sticking to your knitting in every episode. We got two now that we got to.
So there's two. All right. So, all right.
Now there's two.
All right. Yeah. So, but anyway, hey, with what you're saying, though, I mean, you're right. Cash problem, profit problem. I mean, what they have is a gross profit problem that will become a cash problem because they don't know their pricing model or they've entered into a contract that is going to eventually affect them.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If you want to know how to price things correctly at any given time by maintaining a gross profit margin, I'm going to tell you what, at Cashflow Mike, I teach people that gross profit, you saw that. Gross profit is the most important number on the income statement. Is the only place you can get cash to spend or put in your pocket. So you have to know how to price. If you want to know how to price, go to cashflowmike.com, check out the 7-minute conversation. But more importantly, it's because you'll get access to the Facebook group. The Facebook group is where I've got a pricing calculator. This pricing calculator you're going to want, because if you've ever mispriced a product, if you've ever not made as much money as you think you should, then go get my free pricing calculator from the Facebook group called the Clear Path to Cash. That's at Cash on Mike. Download the book, then join the Facebook group. You'll get the free resources and never have this problem again.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about how important it is to go over there and check this out, because pricing is magic for a business, right? And I'm going to bring this up because it was a little bit of a lesson today, in the kind of this week actually. I talked with one prospect that I was talking with, and we were walking through dry run and everything, and we solve a really difficult problem for him. And because of that, like, he looked at our highest prices and was just like, no, cool, good, like zero friction. And then one of my team today had a conversation, and they said, well, the pricing that they thought was probably it was probably less than a tenth the way they thought, what they thought it should be priced at. And I'm like, yeah, but wow. The difference is the second guy didn't have a use for it. Huh. So literally offered an idea, like, what would I pay? It's like, what do they think it's worth? And I'm like, what do they think it's worth when they don't need it? So base your pricing not on an average, base your pricing on people that need your service, that you are solving that problem for. You got to ignore a lot of the noise, because that's kind of a chronic thing. And you've said before, how much is a bike worth? Well, if you ask someone that doesn't bike and doesn't own a bike, they'll probably say $200. And if you ask a different person that bikes every weekend and actually races every once in a while, what, 15 grand, 20 grand?
Yeah.
That's the difference. So it's, just in that pricing, it was a good lesson. Just like, hey, make sure you're taking it in context, because this person over here needs us. that person over here is offering an opinion that we didn't even ask for. So, keep that in mind, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned at the top of the show, I thought about this today because I had a situation. That's how I come up with all my ideas. And I'm going, I just talked about this today. Well, I was contracted by a company and they gave me another company I was contracted by an association that one of their clients wanted to work with me. Make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Yep. So it's like a third party thing. It's like a referral thing. Yep. And they sent me their financial statements. And if you're the type of business owner right now that has garbage, right? And you've heard the garbage in, garbage out. But if you have garbage, you need to be asking yourself, do I really know how to run a business? Because I got a set of financial statements today that I could not believe that the business owner has a $17 million a year business with these financial statements. Think about that, $17 million a year. Mm-hmm. On the balance sheet, I had negative bank balances.
Yeah.
Negative, which means, how do you have negative bank? The other thing they had was negative. Oh, I'm sorry. There was an accounts payable where the union dues, they owed him $2.2 million. How do you have an accounts payable that's negative where I'm not paying you because it's an accounts payable, but you're paying me $2.2 million? How do you have gross profit? You got to remember, gross profit is after you paid off your staff and your materials. This is what you got left to spend on the rest of your business. That number was lower than the net profit number. So how do I have less money to spend? I spend a shit ton of money and then I have more money afterwards. This thing was the most screwed up I'd ever seen, and they're defending it. That's just the way we run our business. It's not possible. You can't start off with $5 million and end up, after you pay your rent and your salary and your utilities and all that, with $5.2 million. You can't fucking do it. I don't know how to do it. They had credits upon this and that and the other. I'm like going, and then he's complaining, I think I paid too much tax. Well, yeah, no shit. If that's the way you're making, that's the way your financial statements look, where you're making more money after you spend money, something's wrong.
Something's super wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
So it reminded me today of being dumb, and not dumb as in they're dumb, unintelligent. I mean, I don't understand my business. When I look at something and it says that I owe Ford Motor Credit, they have a vehicle loan. Ford Motor Credit owes me $15,000 for a loan that I have on my vehicle. There's something wrong with the way I'm doing books.
Something totally wrong. Yeah, completely wrong.
Right? It's like, have you ever seen Seinfeld where they have Bizarro World? How does the county owe you money, and the federal government and the state government, how they owe you money? That's basically what your statements are telling everybody, is they owe you money.
Yeah.
There's something weird about the way they're inputting things.
There's probably a lot of things weird, but and it's like when you mention the size of the company, that's it. And I know you go to the same place that I do, because if the general public hears $17 million company, like, oh my God, the guy's got $17 million he's putting in his bank account every week, right? Or every year.
Yeah.
And when I hear the term $17 million, I'm like, yeah, but did it cost him 15 to run it or 20? Because that's what it comes down to, is what's your net profit? Nothing else matters. Are you profitable or not, right?
Here's the secondary problem. Last year, they only did $5 million. Now they did $17 million because they picked up a big contract with a big named company. And the guy's wife is a bookkeeper. I'm thinking that you grew too fast. Sometimes we can outgrow, our own success, right? It's called growing broke. And just in this case, it might be just the fact that you're doing everything right. You're great at your job. Your billing is great. You're actually doing things good, but it's being recorded wrong.
Yeah.
So you can't make sense of it, right? So you can't make sense of it. So you think nobody would understand it because, hell, you can't understand it.
Yeah. Well, and if you can't make sense of it, the danger there, of course, is that you could be in, first of all, you could actually be doing okay and you don't know it.
Yeah.
You could be doing really well and you should be expanding. Or you could be bleeding money and on death's doorstep and not know it, not understand that. Like, I still remember, I'll never forget, this was quite a number of years ago. I bet you it's 5-6 years ago. We had someone message us on chat, which is like a support channel for Dry Run, right? And all they wrote was something about, yeah, I've got a real problem here. And went, oh, well, okay, that's weird. Let's hop on a call. Because we thought, well, there's something, kind of weird, right? And lady said, yeah, well, you know what I did is I connected my accounting file and pulled all my data in. And I still remember I think it was in April. The only reason I remember is because the next thing out of her mouth was, and I'm going to run out of cash in June. And we weren't that far off from June. I just remember I'm going to run out of cash in June. And I didn't have the call. It was one of my staff at the call, and they came in and went, I thought someone came in because they had a technical problem, connected their file. They had no idea that they were probably 5-6 weeks from being out of cash. They had no idea. Pulled it in, all of a sudden they could see and went, oh shit. And we just went, you need to talk with your accountant, and we can't help you with that problem. Like, you got to, circle in some help and figure this stuff out. But no, I suspect the reason they started using Dry Run, maybe they had some inkling that something didn't seem right. But boy, that was a real short runway. And that's the problem when you don't understand, is you can be surprised, and it can be like we've talked about, step out off the curb in front of a bus. And if it's 10 feet away, you're done. If it's 3 blocks away, you got all kinds of options, right? So time matters.
Time does matter. Yeah. Yeah. The other dumb thing I've seen is, like, I dealt with a trucking company, right? And they go, nobody does what I do. Okay. What do you do? We do the last mile of deliveries, right? It comes off of the customs cargo, whatever the hell it is, the cargo. I'm talking about the big boats. What are those things? They come through customs. They got the big containers. Then they go, then they go to some, then they'll come out of there into some warehouse, right? Some central distribution point. And then other trucks will come up and grab that and take it what they call the last mile, right? Mm-hmm. And we just do last mile. Nobody else does that. I mean, we're going, no, I think a lot of people do that. Right? So
it seems like, isn't that just a courier?
Yeah. I'm like, that's just a delivery service. But in their mind, they'd always compared themselves to large trucking companies that did, like, I picked something up in Seattle and I take it to Oklahoma City, right? They were trying to compare themselves to that. And that's why nothing ever matched up. I'm like, yes, because that's not what you do. You go to the warehouse, pick something up and take it over to this neighborhood. And you might have a whole bunch of things. It's called less than a truckload service. If you ever seen LTL, that's less than a truckload. And what that means is, we're willing to take on partial amounts of orders because they didn't think they were Amazon or any UPS or, that. They go, no, we contract with 1 or 2 or 3 companies in one truck. Yeah, it's called less than a truckload, which means I get the first third, you get the second third, and another company gets the third, and we just deliver it to whoever it needs to go to. Dude, it took me at least 2 weeks, 2 hours of meetings, for them to understand that there are other companies that do what they do. That's crazy. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand your own business. You're like, I'm so unique. nobody does this. I just pick this up in little bits just for this company and deliver their last mile. This last mile is what they were, focused on. And the last mile is, well, that's UPS. That's, that's what they do, right? It's kind of like that.
We used to, a little BS here, but, back in my agency days, we used to, and this is because this is going back, email was still kind of new, and all that, and everything had to be on paper because it didn't count if it was digital back then. And so a lot of times we had to use couriers, but we had to use these the hotshot couriers. So it would be just like a beaten path to our door, and you got a big envelope and there's a bunch of comps and shit in it. It's got to get downtown. And so we would use these hotshot couriers, we used to call them. And so what comes to mind when you picture hotshot courier?
Bike folks, the bike messengers in New York.
Yeah, that's
right.
And like,
that's what I'm thinking.
Bike gear and all, and like totally ripped and everything. And like, well, our hotshot couriers had to drive, right? But when they call themselves a hotshot, I'm thinking like, okay, this is going back a lot of years, but you're thinking like yellow RX-7 or something like that, right? But no, the hotshot courier did never look at all like a hotshot. They're usually like, 75, and the car was 75. They would come slowly walking in and pick up the thing, and they got a little piece of paper that actually had a carbon. For you younger people, there's a carbon copy underneath, and then they would wander out, and you're like, that's our hotshot. This reminded me of this is like the opposite of hotshot, but they had a good little business.
But isn't that funny? That's what I thought of. Those like going, hey, get a messenger over here because this has got to go 2 blocks away for whatever. So, hey, speaking of hotshot, remember I was a state trooper. Do you know one of the things I had to do on occasion, is deliver transplant organs.
Wow.
Now think about that, because they would take it out. We'll say in St. Louis, it's got to get to Kansas City. They would set up this relay, an organ relay, where I would drive and you go lights, sirens, everything down Interstate 70, and you get just a cooler, whatever the hell it is. Eyeballs. I did eyeballs. I did who knows what else I did. Eyeballs is one thing I remember. It's like a lot of people transplanting eyeballs.
Oh,
but
man.
You transport it and you meet a guy at a county line, and next trooper gets it and takes off. It's just like a relay race and track. But it's just
that's crazy.
No, so if they don't have a plane or a helicopter, they'll use state troopers to move it across the state to wherever they need to do the transplant. And that's why sometimes it takes the time it takes, is because you got to get it from, again, St. Louis, 400 miles away over to Kansas City.
That's great. A friend of mine used to fly. At the odd time, he would tell me that he used to fly organs.
Yeah.
Because he was doing, like, they were doing charter, and they would fly organs. And that was back when we were in our 20s or whatever. And now I went for beer with him last week. He's on a 777, and he's like, yeah, I fly about once a month. I'm going to South Korea next week. And I'm like, that sounds pretty cool, actually. So he's built his way. He's worked hard for a lot of years, but he's got a pretty cool job now with the old 777 going all over the world. So.
See, and you with your Japanese t-shirts and jeans, you say, hey, pick me up some shit when you're over there.
Oh, man. I should ask him, hey, going to Tokyo anytime soon?
What is it? What is it? Merino and Japanese denim. That's your thing.
Like, I got Japanese denim. I'm actually wearing a Japanese watch right now, but this is merino. This is. Oh no, this is American. But this is Canadian. This Canadian merino right here, and so close to home merino. Unbound merino. I'm going to give them a plug because they do great, absolutely great stuff.
All right, so I'm going to give you just a little, this is the BS portion, right? First of all, I'm going to say what I learned today is most people aren't unique. There's something about your business that is connected to other people. They're doing it. I don't care if it's delivery. I don't care if it's service. I mean, there's something you can compare yourself to. It may be unique in the way you do it, but it's not always unique.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
That's not BS. That's like good insight. Man.
Well, no, but I'm going to go. I said I wanted to say something I learned before I said BS. I want to talk about Edmonton because, come on.
Oh, we're in a little trouble right now. We're in a little bit of trouble. The Oilers, they have not played a very good game in the finals here, and I'm a little worried right now. So we'll see how they do.
Yeah. So here I am. I'm telling all my friends, Thomas, Pat, everybody. I'm like going Oilers. We got to go Oilers while we're here. Don't let me down.
Yeah.
Now I'm worried. Right now I'm worried, and
Well, I'm worried too. The whole city is worried. The whole city is tied up in knots.
But it was home now.
But you know what? But
it's
thanks for the support.
Home right now. Yeah, but it's home right now.
It's at home right now, and they've done really well at home. And they're in a bit of a tight spot. But you know what? If they win a couple at home here, it's best of 3. So let's see what happens. But keep the faith out there, guys. Thanks for supporting us. Hopefully, watch the game and keep up the faith until there's till they're done. I guess we'll see what happens. It's not going well, but you know what? Florida was a really heavy favorite before the final started, and I didn't want to believe it, but it's been a bit of a rough go. So we'll see what happens.
All right. So you guys are out there listening that are rooting for anybody in NHL in the hockey leagues, right? Go for the Edmonton Oilers, and then after next week, we can go back to the Blues and the Vegas Knights.
We're not going to Blues and Vegas Knights. we're not going. Okay, since you pulled up a little BS, we're right at the end of the show, and probably not too many people are listening anymore. I'm going to pull up a little BS. I'm going to tell you a little story about the fastest door I ever painted as a painter.
Okay.
And I broke records.
That's funny.
I painted this it was the front door to a condo, and I bet you I painted it in about a minute and a half, the entire door. So, you think you'd have pretty good margins built in. A little bit of context here, why I painted this door. So we were in a whole condo complex. We had to paint the doors all the way along. So I went up to this door and I rang the doorbell, and the lady comes to the door, and I said, well, I'm here to paint your door. And she's okay. And so I start painting. So the door is open, and I got, mats down and tape things off, and I'm just starting to roll the door. And she walks down, and I shit you not, she comes down in a robe that's almost open and a cigarette hanging out of her mouth. And she's lived a rough life. And she stands there and kind of pushes her leg out of her robe, cigarette hanging out of her mouth. How's it going? I finished that door in about 30 seconds. I was just like, roll as fast as I can.
I thought you were going to have to put the not safe for work label on the whole thing here, because
it could have been, but no, it was a frightening experience for a, 18, 19-year-old painter. So I painted that door so fast. So, I almost ran from that condo, but I went, as soon as we start talking about the painters, that just popped back into my head. I'm like, I must
Hey, speaking of painters, I haven't noticed this. I haven't said this yet. You know how I always reference my best friend Shane? I say, when I teach ratios, I give the Shane test. Yeah. He impressed the snot out of me this week. He's in Puerto Rico right now. He's in Puerto Rico with his new fiance, Tia. He is getting married. I've never seen this guy so in love, so committed to a person. I am so proud of him right now that I want to tell everybody on a podcast that Shane, Tia, congratulations on getting engaged. Love you guys. Man, best wishes for success, really.
Best wishes, Shane. That's really exciting and a fun, that sounds like a really fun sort of getaway wedding. That's the way to do it, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So, hey, you've been listening to 146 of Mike and Blaine. I'm Mike Milan. That is Blaine Bertsch. We talked about not being dumb. D.U.M.B. Don't understanding your business. Don't understand my business. So, there's ways to get in touch with us. There's ways to connect. There's ways to get involved with the show. How do they do that?
Make sure you like, make sure you follow. We're on a bunch of different platforms. That's why we got to say them all. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Like us, because that really helps the show, and follow us wherever you are, and comment. If you're on LinkedIn, or drop a little comment, and also visit us at mikeandblaine.com. You can buy us a beer and buy a little merch and listen to all our episodes.
Check out their website at mikeandblaine.com. Then subscribe to the podcast and buy these guys a beer.